Hello and welcome, everyone. I am SAG-AFTRA Executive Vice President Ben Whitehair. Thank you all for joining us for another SAG-AFTRA program on YouTube. To stay current with all of our video events, we invite you to subscribe to this channel, which you can even do right now. Today, as always, we are joined by American Sign Language interpreters. Today, we have Selena Flowers and Suzanne Pacheco Correa. As a reminder, you can watch a replay of this program right here on SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel, along with tons of other wonderful content. Today, we present the PTEOE President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement live stream, Netflix Exclusivity Terms Explained. We'll get these basics on new exclusivity terms that offer series regulars a whole new level of flexibility and freedom to pursue multiple work opportunities, including a conflict-free window, updated money breaks, and so much more. To run through some of the key exclusivity provisions in this exciting new contract is SAG-AFTRA National Director Entertainment Contracts, Jessica Johnson. Jessica is a graduate of Florida Gulf Coast University's Lutgerd College of Business and Pepperdine University's Caruso School of Law. In 2014, she began working in the SAG-AFTRA Residuals Claims Department, and in July 2018, Jessica became a manager in the Entertainment Contracts Department, overseeing contract enforcement for television and new media contracts. She later became a director in the same department and now serves as national director. Jessica, thank you so much for being here. I know this is a big topic and it can get complicated and confusing, so I'm excited for you to break it down for us so that we can see what rights performers have in this Netflix agreement. So I would love for you to take it away and tell us what we need to know.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Ben. I'm excited to talk about it. I know we have some helpful slides to go along with here, so we'll go through those. And as you've already heard, we're talking specifically about the exclusivity provisions in the 2022 Netflix agreement. So starting out with just some basic concepts about these changes, a little introduction. The topic of exclusivity to begin with, Ben already alluded to it. Exclusivity is really what determines what other jobs a performer can do while they're working as a series regular. So whether it's during the season on days that you aren't working, or periods of time when you're not shooting, or maybe during the hiatus period between seasons, series regular should have the opportunity to do some other work, and exclusivity sets out those rules. Exclusivity really works hand in hand with options. Options set out kind of the period of time a series performer is committed to the series that they're working on. That's a whole other topic that we're not going to talk about today, but just keep in mind that exclusivity does work hand in hand with options. These new provisions in the 2022 Netflix agreement apply to performers' contracts that are entered into on or after 90 days after ratification of the Netflix agreement. So they're not going to go retroactive if you're already under a series contract on Netflix. The old rules continue to apply. But if you enter into a new series deal starting in about December of 2022, these new rules will apply. This was a trade-off. We were able to achieve this in bargaining by agreeing to withdraw some legislation that the union was supporting that had to do with exclusivity for performers. In doing it in the Netflix agreement, we really made sure that it was something that worked in a manner that would really enable performers to do more work while they were working under series contracts. Moving on to the next topic, or the first topic that you really like to know about, is the money breaks. So once you've already determined that your contract falls into the date range for these new exclusivity provisions, there comes a question about money breaks. Money breaks, really simply put, is just if you're paid a certain amount of money, you're guaranteed a certain amount of money per episode, different rules might apply to your contract. So previously, the money breaks under the Netflix agreement were $40,000 an episode for both half-hour and hour programs. Under this agreement, they significantly increased to $65,000 per episode for half-hour programs and $70,000 per episode for hour programs. All the differences that we're about to talk about, the changes in the agreement that are coming up over the next few slides, only apply to performers who are making below these money breaks. If your episodic rate is above these money breaks, for example, you're making $100,000 an episode, these rules don't apply and exclusivity is negotiable. We'll move on to the next slide. So in addition to a significant increase in the money breaks, the other big change was the type of permitted appearances that you can do. Previously, there was really restrictions on what other type of jobs a series performer could take. and it's been significantly expanded under this agreement. So now a performer can do unlimited guest star positions, appearances. So if you get an opportunity to do a guest star role on some other series, you can do an unlimited number of those as a series regular on Netflix. And up to 6 of those can be in a continuing or recurring role in each season of a series. So you could do a 6-episode arc on one series, and then do a 5-episode arc on another series, and 3 on another one. You just can't exceed 6 in the same season of the same series. In addition to any of those unlimited guest star appearances that you can get, you can also now do either 1 second position series regular role or 1 second position lead in a mini series per year. So you can be a series regular on a Netflix show, and then if you get a job as a series regular on a ABC show or an NBC show, you are allowed to do that so long as that second series will take you in second position. There are still a few restrictions on what the jobs that you can take within these allowable type of permitted appearances, and that's on the next slide. The conditions on your allowable appearance are still that Netflix retains first position rights. So you're still going to have to discuss scheduling and availability with Netflix, except for a little change in the conflict-free window that Ben mentioned earlier that we'll talk about on a later slide. You also can't do a substantially similar role to your Netflix role. There is an additional definition now in the agreement of what substantially similar means. It can't just be that you play a cowboy on a Netflix show, so you can't play a cowboy on another show. It is much more a heightened standard of similarity, but that is addressed in this Netflix agreement. It continues to include the prohibition that you can't do an irreversible change to your appearance. So perhaps you could use temporary hair dye for your guest star role, and then it goes away and you can go back to your series regular role, but you can't cut your hair because you need to look like you look in your series regular role. You also can't parody your role Netflix, the series that you're on. And finally, the promotional restriction. This existed in the 2019 Netflix agreement, but it is way carved down here. Now you are allowed to appear in promotional materials. You just can't appear alone or more prominently than others in key art and trailers, clips that are used in trailers. So you have to appear with the other performers on the show, but you are allowed to appear in those promotional materials now, which was a huge increase, a huge gain. There were 2 conditions that appeared in the 2019 agreement that are completely gone. The one that was really important and really difficult for performers to obtain other work that's now gone altogether is the competing platform restriction. So it used to be that if you were on a Netflix series, you couldn't be on a series that you couldn't do a guest star job on a secondary series that might have high budget SVOD streaming rights in the future, something like that. That is gone. So you can be on 2 SVOD programs. You can be on Netflix and the network program. Those restrictions are all gone. And finally, there was previously a restriction that no 2 series regulars could guest star on the same other show. And that one is gone as well. So 2 series regulars on a Netflix show could both guest star on the same other show. Moving on to the next slide. This is really important. So despite all those conditions and those rules that you need to follow, you need to check in with Netflix. Netflix continues to agree to work cooperatively to allow a series regular to accept another offer whenever possible, even if it doesn't fit into those categories or those prohibitions. So they will work with the other producer, they'll work with you, they'll work with your representatives, your agent, your manager, your attorney, and they'll work with SAG-AFTRA to try to make it happen. So if it is possible for it to happen, it should happen to allow you to take those additional roles and get that additional work while you're a series regular on a Netflix show. Another really exciting addition to the Netflix agreement is this conflict-free window that Ben mentioned earlier. So now for series regulars on a Netflix show that are under the money breaks, Netflix is going to have to give every series regular a conflict-free window during each hiatus period between seasons. It's a minimum of 3 months, so Netflix has committed to give you a longer period whenever possible. You get 30 days notice of that window. During that window, you are free to schedule your other jobs however you get them. Netflix is saying that you have total scheduling flexibility during that conflict-free window, so you don't have to worry about checking your scheduling with Netflix or Netflix being in first position. You can go out and take all of the jobs that you can get within that 3-month conflict-free window, and scheduling is based on those jobs, not on your Netflix series. Those conditions that we just talked about, no substantially similar role, that's no parity, those still apply. So you do still have to abide by those conditions, but scheduling is totally at your availability. If Netflix happens to need you during that conflict-free window, some ADR comes up, they need to do a reshoot, they are subject to your availability. You are to use good faith efforts to make yourself available to them, but if you're working on another job, an allowable permitted appearance, that one comes first, and the Netflix series will come second. There is an exception for a short hiatus. So if the gap between seasons, your break in between 2 seasons is 4 months or less, they don't have to give you the conflict-free window. There's not really enough time to get that conflict-free window in there. It's more like the traditional broadcast schedule in that respect, where you shoot for most of the year, then have a short period of time off, and then go back for the next season. So there is an exception to the conflict-free window rule. But anything else, they have to give you the conflict-free window. And if Netflix fails to give you the conflict-free window, they will have to pay you your episodic rate as a penalty. And it is not recoupable, not creditable against any future money that you will earn under that contract. So it is additional money that you get in exchange for not having the conflict-free window if that happens. But the goal is to always have the conflict-free window and always have the opportunity to take those other jobs while you're in between seasons on your series. And moving on to the last slide, that's really it. That is, the big changes to exclusivity in the Netflix agreement. Like Ben said, it is a meaty subject. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Always sagafter.org. As Ben mentioned, you can watch this video again. You can always reach out to us via email at entcontractsinfo@sagafter.org, entcontractsinfo@sagafter.org. I look forward to any questions that you might have, Ben.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us that overview. I think, I often hear performers talking about how this doesn't necessarily apply to them yet, but as I've said in these before, you're one phone call away from booking that series regular. And I know people who all of a sudden, have been working in the industry for years or decades, and then boom, you've got, in this example, a Netflix series regular. And given the changes in the economy and streaming and the rollout of shows, these exclusivity terms make a big difference in people being able to simply pay their rent, pay their mortgage, support their families. So helpful to know what increased rights that we have. I'm curious, Jessica, how might somebody know which terms apply to them?
Sure. There's really 3 things that they should look at to figure out which terms apply to them. The first is making sure that they're on a series regular contract. Options and exclusivity are concepts that apply to series regular contracts, so you look for series regular. The second thing you'd want to look at is the date of your agreement. If you entered into your agreement before these terms became effective, you'd want to look at the old 2019 rules. But if you entered into your agreement after these terms became effective, like I mentioned, around December of 2022, then these new rules likely apply. And finally, it's those money breaks. You want to look at your episodic guarantee and see where you fall relative to the money breaks. If you're under those 65,000, 70,000 per episode breaks for half-hour and hour shows, then the rules we just discussed all apply to you. If you are over those money breaks, it is negotiable, so you want to look at your individual contract. Oftentimes, producers will negotiate to include a lot of these terms, even in those contracts over the money break. But you have to look at specifically how it's set out in your contract. And that's really a point to make for everyone too, while we're on the topic, is these are all minimums. You can certainly negotiate for better. So, if you or your agent or your attorney or your manager has gotten some sort of better exclusivity provisions, those would be in your individual contract. And if you have any questions about that, we're always happy to help.
Very helpful. Yeah, I love the reminder, any SAG-AFTRA contract is setting the minimums. You can always negotiate more, working with your agents, your legal team, and otherwise to negotiate better terms than what these minimums set. Jessica, with these new terms, can I book 2 shows at the same time?
You can. The only thing you have to worry about is scheduling. So if you're outside of that conflict-free window, the Netflix series, their schedule is going to come first. So your other job would be in second position. But if you're in that conflict-free window, then Netflix kind of takes a back seat on your series, and whatever job you book during that conflict-free window, the schedule for that one comes first. So it's a very exciting part of the conflict-free window is that your schedule is really freed up as a series performer like it never has been before.
Basically, they're guaranteeing that it will be free of conflicts from the first position show. And for clarity, for anybody who doesn't know, first position basically means their schedule comes first. And then if you're in second position, basically that show's schedule has to come second, and you would adhere to who you're in first position with. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's a great way to explain it, Ben.
Okay, great. Okay, one more question. Do these exclusivity rules apply to other platforms or studios or just Netflix?
The ones we just went through apply just to the Netflix agreement, which productions under the Netflix agreement are produced by Netflix for the Netflix platform. So this agreement doesn't apply if some other studio is producing for Netflix and then licensing their content there. This is the Netflix for Netflix agreement. However, everybody might have heard that we also were successful in making some changes to the AMPTP agreement that are very similar in the area of exclusivity. They're not exactly the same, but they're very similar. I suspect will be the topic of another video that can be found in the same place at some point. So there are similar rules for other productions, and that would be basically everything else would fall under those other rules. So similar, but not exactly the same.
And just to reiterate, these are for shows that someone would book starting after what date?
After December 1 of 2022.
Got it. So if you've booked a Netflix series before then the rules that were in place at that time is what would still be in place.
Correct.
Okay, got it. Well, yes, I imagine there may be some more information on the other exclusivity terms that we've negotiated with the AMPTP. For anybody who hasn't heard, that acronym AMPTP is who we go negotiate with predominantly the studios and networks and who we negotiate the TV and film agreements with. So that is a little extra context. I know when I first joined the union, I wasn't entirely clear on that. Jessica, thank you so much. This has been so helpful. Really appreciate you being here. We've covered a lot of ground in a short amount of time. As a reminder to anyone watching, this presentation is available as a replay on the YouTube channel. You can watch it anytime, share it with friends, agents, managers, everyone who's wanting a better understanding of the Netflix exclusivity terms. You can also review this and all of the terms of the great new Netflix agreement at sagaftra.org/Netflix 2022. On behalf of the whole team here at SAG-AFTRA, I want to thank you for watching. And as always, a special thanks to our regular viewers who've been tuning in each week for our PTEOE, President's Task Force on Education, Outreach, and Engagement events. If you have ideas for topics you'd like to see us cover, please shoot us an email, pteoe@sagaftra.org. And before we go, if you haven't already, please subscribe to SAG-AFTRA's YouTube channel to get updates on all of the great content we are posting. Jessica, Selena, thank you, and Susan, thank you all so much for being here. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll see you all soon.